Have you ever stopped to think about why so many people feel financially suffocated even when they have a car that, theoretically, fits their budget? Maybe this has happened to you. The monthly payment seemed manageable. The salesperson guaranteed it would be very easy, and at that moment, everything made sense. Until, a few months later, you realized that the car started to silently, almost invisibly, strain your budget. And the question that almost no one asks before financing is precisely the one that matters most. How much of your salary can a car really withstand without destroying you inside and out? The unpopular truth is that in Brazil, and in much of the world, people don't choose cars based on math. They choose them for status, design, and a sense of accomplishment. And there's nothing wrong with wanting something better, but there's a hidden price to that decision that most people only discover when they're already trapped in financing and realize that financial freedom has been put into reverse. What you're about to discover might surprise you, because the entire industry pushes the idea that if it fits the payment, everything's fine. And that's precisely where the trap lies. This thinking creates a cycle where you work all month to pay for something that should make life easier, but in the end becomes an emotional and financial burden. Have you ever experienced this? That moment when the bill arrives, the car expenses add up. Fuel, insurance, maintenance, vehicle tax, invisible fees here and there. And you wonder where the money that should be extra went. It's frustrating, I know. But there's a very clear reason why this happens. Almost no one follows the 4-20-10 rule, a simple, direct, and brutally effective rule that can prevent years of financial suffering. The 24-10 rule isn't a trick. It's not something invented to complicate things, and it's definitely not something salespeople will explain to you at the dealership. It exists precisely to prevent you from falling for the illusion of low monthly payments, which seem harmless, but hide an absurd total cost. And when you understand this rule, you start to see the car differently, not as a status symbol, but as a decision with a real impact on your financial health. It's amazing how most people ignore this basic logic and cling to the idea that everyone has a car, so I can too. But math doesn't care about social comparisons. It demands payment, and it demands it heavily. Stick with me until the end, because this could save you years of hardship. Just remember how many times someone in your circle complains that they earn well, but are always in debt. There's almost always a bigger, more expensive, or newer car than they could have chosen. And nobody talks about it because admitting that the car has become a prison hurts. The payment has become an emotional commitment, almost a marriage with interest. But, like any abusive relationship, there comes a time when you feel you've lost control. And it's at this point that the 4-20-10 rule appears like a bucket of cold water, and at the same time, as a possible way out. When you understand that a 20% down payment, a maximum of 4 years of financing, and a 10% monthly payment aren't limitations, but rather protection, something changes in your mindset. Suddenly, that car that seemed like an affordable dream reveals its true weight. And that's when the conversation gets serious, because when we apply this logic to the most common salaries, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, the results are not only shocking, they completely dismantle the idea that owning a brand new car is something simple or natural. And before we get into the numbers, which I'll warn you now, will be a necessary shock, I want to help you see this situation clearly, not to create fear, but to give you control. Because only when you understand the mathematics behind the purchase does it cease to be a prison and begin to be a conscious choice. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when we start putting the numbers on the table, the reality becomes impossible to ignore. And as you begin to realize how these seemingly small choices shape your entire financial life, perhaps something inside you is already connecting the dots. Because deep down, nobody talks about that feeling of carrying a weight that shouldn't exist, a silent pressure that drains your possibilities month after month. And that's exactly why this kind of conversation needs to happen out loud. By the way, if this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has touched you the most so far, or what experience opened your eyes. It may seem like a small detail, but your stories create a real space for exchange, help other people going through the same thing, and keep this channel growing purposefully. And since we're talking about decisions that shape the future, liking the video is one of the simplest ways to show that this content helps you in some way. This like isn't just a click. It tells YouTube that this topic matters. that it's worthwhile to share this warning with more people who might be experiencing exactly the same hardship you know so well. And if you feel that this type of conversation guides you, orients you, or gives you that clarity you lack when emotion speaks louder than math, take advantage and subscribe to the channel. This is how you ensure you don't miss future content, and at the same time, strengthen this community that is learning, evolving, and breaking financial cycles that seemed normal but were never healthy. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this message that, honestly, can prevent years of hardship. When you comment, interact, and subscribe, you're not just helping a channel, you're helping build a movement of people who want to make better decisions and escape traps that seem harmless but drain the financial lives of those who don't pay attention to the details. And as we continue to explore this reality together, something becomes increasingly clear. Understanding these rules is just the beginning. Because when we put the magnifying glass on the real numbers, in each salary bracket, the mask falls, and the shock is inevitable. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject because when you see the real impact of these choices, everything starts to make sense in a different way. When we begin to unravel this hidden truth that no one explains, everything becomes clearer and at the same time harder to face. Because the 24/10 rule isn't a complicated invention, nor a mysterious calculation created to make life difficult for those who want to buy a car. It is, in reality, a kind of protective filter, a shield against emotional decisions that, in the heat of the moment, seem incredible, but which, behind the scenes of real life, generate heavy consequences. Its simplicity is almost uncomfortable. 20%. Down payment, a maximum of 4 years of financing, and a monthly payment that doesn't exceed 10% of your salary. On paper, this seems too simple, but in practice, it is precisely this simplicity that reveals the hidden impact behind the choices that most people make without thinking twice. The curious thing is that this rule has been applied for years in the United States as a basic strategy for financial stability. It's not seen as a luxury, but as the minimum to prevent a purchase from becoming a prison. And when you look at this mentality, you realize how different the financial journey of many people would be if this logic were followed here as well. But in Brazil, almost no one uses this reference. Instead, the culture of installment payments that fit in the budget prevails, without realizing that the budget may accept it, but life can't handle it. And that's where the feeling of always chasing after something, always tired, always working hard, and seeing little result at the end of the month begins. The transformation begins when you understand that these 3 simple lines, down payment, term, and percentage of salary, are actually an emotional barrier. They exist to prevent you from financing beyond what your income can support without sacrificing your peace of mind. But since almost no one follows them, many end up with long, expensive, and exhausting financing. And it is precisely at this point that financial burnout resides, that almost silent feeling that you spend the entire month just to feed a car that should bring you mobility, but ends up bringing you weight. Many people live like this, believing that it's normal, when in reality they are just repeating a pattern that drains energy, freedom, and the ability to make better decisions. And when you look at this scenario more objectively, you realize how small, accumulated decisions, a longer deadline, a smaller down payment, an installment that slightly exceeded the ideal, transform over time into a snowball effect that pushes you towards a more frugal life. The impact isn't just financial, it affects your mindset, your autonomy, your ability to plan for the future without fear. It's as if each deviation from this rule is an invisible cut to your freedom, one that you only notice when you're already full of scars and don't understand where all the pain came from. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when we start applying these 3 numbers to real salaries, reality ceases to be theory and becomes an uncomfortable but necessary mirror of what many people experience today without realizing it. And before we move on to that part, leave a comment below so I know you're following this journey of financial awareness. Right, that makes sense to me. When we start putting the numbers on the table, everything that seemed like an abstract discussion becomes a direct mirror of real life. And that's where many people feel that discomfort in their chest, because mathematics has no pity, makes no emotional concessions, and doesn't negotiate with desire. Mathematics only shows the hidden truth that most people avoid looking at. And it is precisely here that the impact is strongest, because each salary bracket reveals, without anesthesia, why so many people live tired, indebted, and with the constant feeling that they work only to maintain a car that, in the end, should never have entered their lives in that way. When we take, for example, a salary of 2,000 reais, the rules limit is clear. 10% means 200 reais for an installment. 200 reais. And no matter how much you twist this reality trying to fit in a brand new car, it simply doesn't fit. What falls into this range are very old used cars, often with unpredictable maintenance, requiring calm and patience to find something decent. It's not glamorous, it's not comfortable, but it's the stark truth. And this revelation hurts because it exposes the clash between the dream and reality, between the emotion of the purchase and the financial background that nobody explains to you at the dealership. Now, when we move up a bit to a salary of 3,000 reais, the story changes, but only slightly. The same 10% becomes a 300 reais installment, and that still keeps any brand new car completely out of reach. With that margin, what appears as slightly newer used cars, but still far from any idea of achievement. And many people at this point feel that inner discomfort, a mixture of frustration and revelation, because they realize that the feeling of not progressing has nothing to do with luck, but rather with decisions that have always been bigger than their salary could support. When we reach a salary of 5,000 reais, that's when the treacherous moment arrives, because the mind starts to believe that now is the time. With a 500 reais installment, some good used cars come into view, maybe even a simpler, nearly new one. It seems comfortable, it seems rational, but it's still a tight margin when you consider that the car doesn't come alone. It comes with insurance, fuel, maintenance, and all the small costs that gradually drain your income. This is where many people are mistaken, thinking that by earning a little more, they can move up a category, and it's precisely in this desire to advance that the person slips. And then we arrive at the salary of 10,000 reais. Here, the rule allows for installments of up to 1,000 reais, and it's at this point that people believe they are finally in the game for new cars. But there's an important detail. Even for those who earn well, the down payment needs to be substantial. And when you look at it objectively, you realize that, even in this range, many people buy cars far above what the rule would recommend, financing 2 or 3 times more expensive than they could afford. And this creates a devastating ripple effect. Life becomes tighter than it should be. Decisions become more difficult. Freedom disappears. It's as if the person is always one step behind, even earning well. When we look at these 4 aspects together, something becomes clear. Most people buy beyond their means, not for lack of will or intelligence, but for lack of clarity. People pay for their dreams, but receive a debt. And this disconnect creates an entire journey of hardship, anxiety, and a feeling of being behind. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when we understand how these choices shape our financial future, a new kind of awareness begins to emerge, almost like a revelation that changes everything. Write it in the comments. I'm on this journey too. When we start looking at this difference between the car that the person it could have and the car that she ends up choosing, it becomes clear that there's a deep, almost emotional pattern behind all these decisions. It's not just math, it's narrative, it's influence, it's that feeling of belonging that many people seek without realizing it. And all of this is mixed with a scenario where advertising works aggressively, always presenting images of freedom, status, achievement, and power. Commercials never show the installment plan, the deadline, the interest, or the financial burden. They show empty roads, smiling people, organized trunks, happy families. It's a plot created to activate desire, not rationality. And when you realize how this shapes your mindset, you understand why so many people fall into the same trap. Furthermore, there are the salespeople, and this isn't about blaming anyone. It's about understanding what works behind the scenes. They are trained to transform an expensive car into something that fits your budget. This phrase, in fact, has become a symbol of how the market works. The total price doesn't matter, as long as it fits in your pocket. Today. But nobody asks you if this will fit into your life in 6 months, a year, 3 years. It's as if the whole system is designed for you to make immediate decisions without questioning the hidden impact. And this lack of reflection opens the door to social pressure. which is much stronger than it seems. Many people buy cars not because they need them, but because they feel diminished by what they have. It's a silent game of comparison, where nobody says anything, but everyone observes. And when we add all of this to the lack of financial education, the scenario becomes even more serious. Very few people stop to calculate the total cost. Interest, depreciation, and impact on the budget. The focus is always on the present, on immediate pleasure. It's as if the brain says, "I deserve this now," without realizing that this now can cost years of limitations. Immediate pleasure wins over future freedom, and wins easily. But the victory is illusory, because the price comes later, in long, silent, and exhausting installments. It's not uncommon to see people who earn well, have a solid income, but live on the emotional and financial edge because of a car that should never have entered their lives in that way. And this is where the harsh revelation comes in. Every wrong decision regarding a car steals time, steals peace of mind, steals opportunities. It's as if each higher installment payment translates into missed opportunities. A trip you never take, a course you can't afford, an investment you never start. And the saddest part is realizing that many people spend years living, thinking that cars are expensive anyway, without noticing that the problem isn't the car, it's the size of the car in relation to the size of life. It's an imbalance that consumes energy, generates anxiety, and creates a permanent feeling that you're always arriving late for your own journey. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when you understand the invisible forces that shape these choices, you begin to see more clearly the path to regaining financial and emotional control over your decisions. Before we move on, write in the comments, "That makes sense to me." When we reach this point in the conversation, it becomes clear that the problem was never just the car itself, but the mindset that accompanies this decision. There's a moment when everything becomes a great revelation, realizing that following the 24-10 rule isn't about giving up a dream, but about regaining control of your own life. It's almost like exchanging an invisible chain for a key, because when you choose a car that truly fits, within your financial journey, the impact is immediate and profound. More breathing room each month, less anxiety, less fear of any unforeseen event turning into a disaster. It's a silent but powerful transformation that changes not only your finances, but also your relationship with money. And this change in mindset begins when you understand that a car isn't a prize, a symbol of victory, or a definitive achievement. A car is an expense, a constant, unavoidable, and often unpredictable expense. Advertising will never tell you this, but life does, and it demands payment. And when that realization hits you, you start looking at what you drive today with different eyes. Does this car represent who you really are? Or does it represent a version of yourself trying to prove something to someone? Does it take you where you want to go? Or does it hold you back without you realizing it? It's in this reflection that many people find the answer they've been avoiding for years. Doing what I call a financial compatibility test is one of the most honest things you can do for yourself. It's about looking at your current car and asking yourself, if I applied the rule now, would this car pass or fail? If it fails, it's not the car that's wrong. It's the story you're telling yourself about it. And that story might be costing you not only money, but peace of mind, time, and the freedom to choose other important things in your life. The hidden truth is that a car beyond your financial limit not only squeezes your monthly budget, it squeezes your emotional breathing, your ability to plan, and your courage to make changes. And when you finally see a car not as a status symbol, but as a tool, everything changes. The feeling of heaviness begins to disappear. Life becomes lighter, more manageable. You have room for unexpected events, for bigger dreams, for smarter decisions. It's almost as if you've taken a backpack full of stones off your back without realizing you were carrying it. And the most curious thing is that when you choose a smaller, simpler, more compatible car, it's not a loss. It's a silent gain of peace. That peace that many people don't even remember anymore because they're constantly putting out financial fires every month. The big shift in mindset lies in understanding that financial freedom doesn't come from earning more, but from stopping the bleeding caused by decisions that don't align with reality. And a car is one of the decisions that causes the most bleeding, precisely because nobody talks about it. But when you finally adopt this more mature, more strategic perspective, more aligned with who you want to be in the long term, something powerful happens within you. It's a kind of intimate, almost spiritual revelation that there is no financial freedom with a car that consumes your peace. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when this awareness takes hold, you begin to see paths that previously seemed non-existent. And that's where true transformation begins. Before we continue, write in the comments, "I'm on this journey too." If you've made it this far with me, it's because this topic truly resonated with some part of your financial story. And that says a lot about the kind of journey you're building. This channel exists precisely for that reason, to bring clarity where there's usually only noise, and to transform decisions that seemed burdensome into conscious, light choices aligned with what you truly want to experience. So, if this content has helped you in any way, if it has made you see something that was hidden behind the scenes of your decisions, take advantage and subscribe to the channel. That way, you can continue with me on this journey of financial transformation that, little by little, will change the way you see money and how money impacts your life. And leave a comment below saying, "This message was for me," just so I know you made it to the end, and that this conversation made sense. Reading this helps me understand who is truly on this quest for freedom, and creates an even stronger connection between us. And since we're talking about connection, leave a like too, not as an automatic gesture, but as a sign that this reflection added something important to you today. Now, if you want to continue this journey, there's a video over here that perfectly complements what we've discussed. Just click and follow along there, because this conversation still has a lot of room to grow.